Hello and welcome back to this course. In our previous video, we have discussed about the queue interface, and in this video, we are going to discuss about the PriorityQueue class, which has implements the queue interface. So let's discuss what is PriorityQueue class. The element of the priority queue are ordered according to natural ordering or by comparator provided at the queue construction time, depending upon which constructor is used. A priority queue does not permit null elements. So in priority queue, the elements, it is just like the queue, but in priority queue, the elements are ordered according to natural ordering or by using a comparator. I hope you know about the comparator interface, as we have discussed this interface in our previous video. So it's depend upon that which type of constructor we are using while creating the priority queue class object basically. And also priority queue does not permit null elements. Now these are the methods that are present in the PriorityQueue class. Boolean offer. This method inserts the specific element into the priority queue. This method, so offer method, help us to add the element in the priority queue, and it returns true if the element is added and false if element is not added. Second, we have peek method. This method retrieves but does not move the head of this queue and returns null if the queue is empty. So this method returns us the peak value and does not remove the value, and if the queue is empty then we get null. And at the third we have the poll method. This method retrieves and removes the head of this queue or it returns null if the queue is empty. So this method basically retrieves the head and remove it and return null if the queue is empty. So let's create a code for the priority queue in our NetBeans so that we have a better understanding that how priority queue is working. So let's create a code in our NetBeans. Okay, so here in NetBeans, first of all, I am going to create a class with the name customer. Okay, so I type here class customer, and in this class I am going to create two variables, instance variables, private int id and private string name. Okay, and I am going to create a constructor here. So I type here public customer, and in the parameter I type here int I and string n for name, and in the constructor I am going to type here this dot id equals to I and this dot basically name equals to n. Okay, so I also change here id and name. Okay, okay, so after that I am going to create the getter for these variables. So I type here public int get id, and I type here return id. After that public int string get name, and here I type here return name. Okay, so we have just created the class with the name customer and added two variables in it, id and name, created the constructor and the getter for these classes basically. So I add here getters. Okay, so now I go to the main function, and in the main function I am first of all going to use the natural ordering of the priority queue. We know that in priority queue the elements are sorted in the natural ordering. So first of all I am going to show you the way with the natural ordering. So I type here queue, and here I type integer. Okay, integer, and I type here integer priority queue, just the reference, and new priority queue, and also I type here the size 7. Okay, so I also import the queue class, priority queue class, and the queue also. Okay, so I remove the equals to from here like this. Okay, now after that I am going to use the random class. Basically random class help us to generate the random numbers. So I type here random, and rand equals to new random. Okay, and I import the random class in my program. Okay, so I'm going to start a loop here. I type here for int I equals to 0, I less than 7. We know that the size of the periodic queue is 7, so I type here 7, and I plus plus. And in the for loop, I'm going to type here integer integer priority queue. Integer priority queue dot, I'm going to add the integer value, so I type here new integer, and in the constructor I type here rand, because I want to generate the random number, so I type here rand dot next int, and in the argument I type here 100, because I want to generate the values between the 100. So I type here 100 like this, and then I create another for loop here. So I type here for int I equals to 0, I less than equals to, I change it to 10 basically here. I type here 10, also here 10, and I lose it 10 here because 10 is more easier to understand for me. So I plus plus, and in the body for loop I am going to create the integer in equals to integer priority queue dot poll. Okay, so you can see that it retrieves and removes the head of this queue. Okay, and returns null if the queue is empty. So this basically removes the head of the queue. So I type here poll. Okay, then I print here system.out.println, and I type here integer, and I concatenate the in with it. Okay, so now if I run my program, you can see that all the elements present in the queue are ordered. You can see here 2, 3, 16, 22, 29, 36, 51, 56, 92, and 96. All the elements or the numbers in the queue are ordered. We know that this is a natural ordering. The numbers are ordered naturally. So this is the priority queue using the natural ordering. And now I am going to discuss the priority queue example with the comparator. So this is the natural ordering. So I mention here uh, uh, natural ordering of priority queue. Okay, and now I am going to type here the priority queue with comparator. Okay, and now outside my main method I type here public static. We know that we want to use it in our main function, so I type here static, and then comparator and customer, and id comparator equals to new comparator, and also I type here customer like this. Okay, so I have to import the comparator, and also I have to implement the abstract method, which is the compare. So compare and generate. Okay, so we want to override this compare method in our class. This is basically comparator anonymous class. You can say that this is anonymous class. We know that what is the anonymous class. So I have created the anonymous class for the comparator. You can see here public static comparator and id comparator is equal to new comparator, and in this we have to override the compare method. So I simply type here, so I just basically change it to customer C1 and C2 to easily remember that C1 and C2. Okay, and in the body of the compare method I am going to simply return C1 dot get ID minus c2 dot get ID, like this. And also I typecast it with int here because we are returning the integer type value. Okay, in this way I have return. And now I am going to create another method here. So I type here public static void add data to queue, and in the parameter I type here queue, then customer. We have created the class of the customer, so I type here customer priority queue, and in the body of the method I'm going to type here rand equals to new random, and I'm going to start a for loop here. So I type here int I equals to 0 and I less than 10 and I plus plus. Okay, so I change here 0. Okay, and in the body of the for loop I'm going to type here int id. We want to generate the random id, so I type here int id equals to rand dot next int, and I type here 100 because I want to generate the id between the 100. So 100 and customer dot customer priority queue dot add, and I'm going to add here the new customer. So I type here new customer, and in the constructor I type here id. I have to pass two things, which is id and the name. And the name I type here random name, so I type here my name, like this. And I also concatenate the id with it, so plus id, like this. Okay, so after that I'm going to create another method. So I type here public static void and poll data from queue, and I type here queue and customer. We have created the class of the customer, and customer priority queue here, customer priority. And in the body of the function I'm going to type here a loop here. So I basically use the while loop, while, and in the condition I type here true. Okay, and after that I'm going to create customer customer equals to customer priority queue dot poll. Okay, and I also type here if customer equals to null, then simply break. And I also print here system dot out dot println, and I type here customer id right now, and I just concatenate the customer dot get id, this one. Okay, so I go to the min function and I type here just after this comment I type here queue and customer priority queue, and also I type here new priority queue, and I type here 7, And in the second parameter, I type here ID comparator. Okay, and then I simply type here add data to queue. We have created the function with this name, and I type here customer priority queue, and also I call the second method, that is poll data from queue. And in the argument I also type here customer priority queue. Okay, so now I think everything is done. If I run my program, okay, so there is some errors. I click on one anyway. Okay, in this process we have used the natural processing. You can see here this is the natural ordering. And second time, so first of all, remove the error from here. Where is the error? Okay, so we know that after anonymous in a class we have to use this semicolon. Okay, so now if I run my program, you will see the random numbers are generated with the natural ordering, and they are placed in the queue by using the natural ordering. You can see here 2 to 15, 28, 48, 57, 63, 65, 94, 99. They are ordered by using the natural, you can say, ordering. And second time, we are using the customer class to generate our customers. You can see customer ID right now 1, 19, 23, 35, 53, 61, 62, 78, 97, 99. These are the random numbers which are generated. In this way is using the natural ordering, and this is using the comparator basically to um, order our data in the priority queue. You can see here, first of all, we have using the natural ordering of the priority queue, we have just created the queue of the type integer and name the integer priority queue is equal to new priority queue object, and we have given the size 10. And then we have simply created the object of the random class, and we have added some random integer values in the priority queue, and after that we have just printed the value on our screen. You can see here every time we are just uh, fetching the head of the queue and printing it on the screen. You can see here, and after that we are using the priority queue with the comparator. I have simply used the 2-3 methods here. First of all, here you can see that here I am using the comparator anonymous class implementation. So simply I type here public static comparator customer, and I type here the reference ID comparator is equal to new comparator. And we know that whenever we use the comparator interface, we have to override a method which is compare. And in the compare, I just return c1.getID and c2.getID, and I add the subtraction and return the basically integer type value. So that's why I typecasted with integer here. And the second method, I have just typed here public static void add data to the queue. This time we are adding data into the queue. So in the parameter, I receive the queue customer type value. So I type here queue customer equal new customer ID priority queue. We are passing the customer priority queue in our main method. So definitely we have to create it here. So I am just generating the random number, and I'm adding the random ID to the customer constructor. I give the default name, which is my name, and I give the ID, which is generated randomly. After that, I have created the poll data from the queue method, which also, and the parameter use the queue type value, which is the customer. So after that, I have used the while loop. So I type here while true customer equal to customer priority queue dot poll. Every time we are just removing the head from the queue, and we are just returning the head and printing on the screen. And we are just printing the customer.getID on the screen. And at last, we know that when all the elements are deleted, we get null. So whenever we get null, we just break the loop and get out from it. And in this way, we are using the comparator in the priority queue. So I hope that you understand about that how we are using the priority queue class in our Java. I have shown you The two ways, first one is the natural ordering, and second way is using the priority queue with the comparator, you can see here. Anyhow, if you feel any problem while understanding the priority queue, you can definitely ask me a question. I will help you. Basically, elements in the priority queue are ordered according to their priority. So definitely, according to natural processing, one has more priority than two, so one is placed at the head first. So priority queue basically works on the base of the priority. So I hope that you understand that what is priority queue and how we can use it in our program. So that's it for this video. I will see you in next video.